So I think we're good now. Nothing crazy's happening. All right, good. So hello,
I see live
everyone.
up in the corner. So
yeah, well, it shut down on me a second ago, and it's like, oh no, what's happening now? Anyway, hi everyone. I'm HP Holo. I write stuff, and occasionally I talk to other people who write stuff. And today I am here with David Weber and Jacob Holo to celebrate the launch of where'd it go? I got my book somewhere. The JANUS File. And so, yeah, so here's how this is going to work. We're going to be doing some chattering. We're going to be taking some questions from people. This is streaming in like 3 different locations, YouTube and Facebook. Your comments are going to come through to me so I can see them. For some reason, Twitter does not come through to my little thing here. So I'll be looking on Twitter, but if you want to make sure your comments get to me, go to YouTube or Facebook, and I'll share that in the chat. Also, we are going to be running a contest during this, and that link will also be shared. But basically, go to this link I'm going to share. Everyone who enters is entered to win one of 3 signed copies of the JANUS file. There's a little extension where if you've already bought the JANUS file, yay, we love you. But also send us like your little confirmation number or whatever from wherever you bought it or your receipt or whatever. And you'll be entered to win a signed copy of the Gordian Protocol or some other book if you already have the Gordian Protocol. Oh, hey, Richard, we already have someone. So, yay! All right, we're going to have fun. So, my first question. Anyone who looks at the cover of this book knows that it's going to be at least a little bit different from the previous 2 books in the Gordian Division series, this being book 3. Why the significant departure? Because the others are basically like military sci-fi, time travel, alternate history, and this is a sci-fi police procedural murder mystery. So have at it. Who wants to talk first?
Well, the main thing was that we couldn't blow up any more universes.
Oh, yeah, because of Jacob's universe.
I didn't say who wanted to blow up the universes. I just said we couldn't blow up any more for a little while.
I was placed on a universe-destroying diet.
Yes.
It amazes me that I can say that sentence.
that is correct. You know,
that just
hi,
means
my name is Jacob, and I have a problem. Okay, it's called. Actually, from the very beginning, before Jacob and I ever started on this, back when it had only been an idea noodling around in the back of my brain, I'd visualized this as a combination of cross-temporal and temporal travel. Actually, in my mind, with the emphasis on the cross-temporal, the travel between alternate universes created by the time travel. Now, I'd always recognized that the time travel back and forth was going to be a major part of it, but more or less side to side. And one of the things that I'd been looking at was the police function that would have to be necessary to control that kind of traffic. So there were always going to be 2 parallel lines of books. And so Jacob and I discussed what became the JANUS file. We talked about it. We did the outline. Jacob did the rough draft. We sent it to Tony. And what did Tony say, Jacob?
Oh, you mean the initial proposal that we put together?
Yeah.
Well, so her feedback was that it was too much like a thriller, and she wanted more police procedural elements in it. And I remember thinking at the time, it's like, okay, I don't really, being a thriller, it doesn't seem too bad to me. Okay, but she then gave me some homework. And at the top of the list was read 10 Ed McBain novels from the 87th Precinct, the 87th Precinct series. And I immediately fell in love with those books. And as soon as I started reading them, light bulb went on. It's like, aha. Now I understand what Tony wants from this particular track in this series. And the second proposal that we put together was basically the response was, yes, do that, but add one more false lead.
The hilarious thing about this, though, is that, like, I don't know if anyone else actually realizes this about Jacob, but he discovered that he actually really, really loves writing police procedurals through this, which is not a genre that he ever thought he would really enjoy. For those who are joining us and don't know, we're married, as you might have guessed from the identical last names. So yeah, we're streaming from inside the same house. So you may be blessed by our cat, or one of our cats now, because we have another one coming into both rooms. So I assure you, she's not like using magic portals, though I'm sure she's probably perfectly capable of it. But anyway, yeah. So you discovered an entirely new genre that you enjoy writing through this novel, and that's just cool, because I think initially you were just like, I want to write military sci-fi forever, and it's such a huge departure.
well, I mean, part of it, in terms of where I've been as like an author, where my career has been, I've been sort of like, okay, well, initially the goal was just to get traditionally published, and that goal, that box has been checked, and I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do now? And one of the wonderful things about working on these books with David is that I've been able to kind of explore what I want to do as an author moving forward. And I got a taste of police procedurals, and I love it.
What's your favorite Ed McBain book at this point? Do you remember? It's been a while since you read them. I think you read them.
Obviously, I've read so many of them that the titles and what goes on in them sort of blends together. I would have to get my stack out.
There was a period where Jacob's bedside table was like nothing but Ed McBain books.
Well, one of the wonderful things about Ed McBain is that the books integrate so close to seamlessly that it does get very difficult to remember which part of the storyline was in what title, because they are so naturally part of the ongoing saga of the 87th precinct. I think that one of the things that is also at play here, and one of the reasons why Tony wanted you to read the police procedurals and move us away from the thriller and towards the procedural, is that one of the hallmarks of Bain books, at least the ones that I've been associated with, is that we try to deal with I don't want to say the minutia, but the nuts and bolts of what it is that we're writing about, whether it's military or whether it's police procedural or whatever. I remember many years ago when Tony and I were talking about military science fiction, and she distinguishes, and I think it's a valid distinction between what she calls militaristic science fiction and military science fiction. Military science fiction is written by people who genuinely understand the military and who are trying to write a story in which the military is portrayed as accurately as it can be portrayed in fiction. Militaristic science fiction is what she thinks of as somebody wanted to write a book about a war and they don't know crap about the military, but they wrote one anyway. Okay. All right. And the thing is that you can succeed at that, but you don't succeed at that with a critical audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things about the Bain reading audience is that it is by and large a critical audience that holds its chosen authors, whoever they may be, to a relatively high standard.
Oh, you froze for a second there. Sorry. Okay, that's one thing that I really enjoy about the Bain audience, actually, because they'll find these tiny little details and start picking them apart. And sometimes I have to listen to Jacob talk about it, and it's kind of infuriating. But at the same time, it's like, I love you, Jacob. But it's also like it's really gratifying to have readers who are that invested in this little detail you put into a story. Like, it's really, really cool. My next question, now this is obviously a co-authored book. How did you coordinate the writing of this book compared to the previous ones in the series? Because I know that earlier with Gordian and Valkyrie, it was very clearly divided between Jacob handles the future stuff and David handles the history stuff. So how did that work for this one?
This one, in large part, because virtually all of it was in our future societies. Jacob and I talked about the storyline, and the second storyline. And then he went off and wrote the rough draft. The entire thing. And I think I insisted that he change 2 words.
I do remember that, actually.
Yeah,
You were so happy about that, Jacob. He was beaming the
otherwise
whole
it
day.
was,
I'm going to embarrass you,
it was
Jacob. Not really. Don't stress out.
Well, collaborations work differently between different collaborators, and even between the same collaborators on different books. Okay. With some collaborations, like for example with Eric Flint, okay, we vary. The divisions in who was writing what were very clear and based largely on the characters set. Okay. And then I did the final edit if it was in my universe, and he did the final edit if it was in his universe. All right. Well, Jacob and I did Gordian that way. And when we did Jacob did the original rough draft for Valkyrie. And I, as you may remember, was having some health issues, concussions, COVID,
You had
little
some
stuff like
adventures
that
during
there.
the writing of this series.
So Jacob went ahead and did the entire original draft. And we realized after he had done it that the historical section, which was my area of strength, really needed to be reworked somewhat. And so I did, what, Jacob, you think 30% of the manuscript on that one?
About, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when we got to Janus, all right, this is one of those collaborations where you're collaborating on where you're going with the story and how it fits into the universe. Okay. And to be honest, I had anticipated having to do considerably more editing on
good, Jacob.
than I finally did. And Jacob handed me a really, really clean manuscript that seriously, Now I think I may actually have had more editorial requests on the next file novel than I did on this one.
I think they were, they were pretty much the same until we got to the content edits. And for book 4, Tony wanted things to be made a little more difficult for our protagonists in like the first third of the book. But
what book are we on now? Like,
today,
just released.
Well, we're on book 3. So
and you're on. You're working on 7 right now?
6.
I have
6.
Okay. 6,
I just today wrote the first scene from book 6. Yes.
My perception of what people have experienced of this series is completely off because Jacob is always working on something in it. It's weird. It's one strange thing that people don't see about author life is that whenever your newest book comes out, often you're so far ahead you kind of forget what's going on.
Yeah, because Heather, you and I will go for like our morning walk, and I'll be talking about what I'm going to be working on, in terms of the scenes and whatnot, and so you're like a few books ahead of everyone else.
I'm ahead of everyone else, and it's weird, but you are in like some really fun things are in store for this for this series, so I'm really excited. I think Janus is actually probably my favorite in the series because I love the other two, but it's first of all the style of story is just more my vibe. Like I think what Publishers Weekly, they had a long quote about it, but they basically called it pure entertainment, which is it's so accurate. I mean, it's a fun story with just enough sci-fi complication to make the world really rich, and I really love it. And I think it's a very good, even though it's book 3, I think it's also a very good alternate entry point for the series, just because you experience or sort of a different view of the world.
I think it would be a completely serviceable entry point.
Mhm.
I think that without the previous 2 books, there's subtext
Oh yeah.
that you would miss. But I think I actually had a little tiny bit of a problem with the pure entertainment label.
Oh no, why?
No. Because that is sometimes, it was not in this instance, but it can also be a dismissive comment.
Yeah, I can see what you
Okay,
mean
when
there.
you start talking about, well, it's mind candy or whatever.
It is
Um,
mind candy, though. It's just like the really expensive kind.
well,
It's the fancy pants candy that you go to like Whole Foods to get or something.
well,
Is that a
what I
fancy
would
candy place? I don't know. I eat all candy. I don't discriminate.
what I was going to say is that while it is completely entertaining all the way through, there are also some issues that are being looked at in here. I mean, neither Jacob nor I are interested in cramming any particular viewpoint down somebody's throat.
Which is one
Everything,
of the things I enjoyed most about the book too, because it's relaxing.
yeah. But one of the things that happens is that when you write, when you tell a story, it's automatically informed by, infused with your views, your opinions, because you're the one telling the story. Okay. Some of the issues that we're dealing with here are, I think, very on point for a society which has hyper divided,
Mm-hmm.
because our protagonists are on the other side. There are 2 different sides of this divide.
They're
That
quite
is,
literally divided because they're from
oh
2 separate
yes,
universes.
yes, and the 2 universes basically fought a war, even though one of them
Mhm.
didn't know anything about it, a while back. But I mean, like, one of them regards its neighboring universe as slave owners because of the way they treat electronic personalities, and the other
Mhm.
one is horrified by the first society's use of nanotech and whatnot. Um, and one of the things that these 2 societies are busy discovering is that it's possible to be different and not necessarily be evil or malevolent.
Mhm.
And so I would say that that is probably actually the single strongest underlying commentary thread, if there is one, of the book. But I don't think that the commentary is so central to either Jacob or me that we feel like, okay, this is what the story is about.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that one of the things that I think makes it successful is that these characters are actually having to deal with some very significant issues that are going to have resonances in the lives of our readers.
Well, I
Mhm.
mean, when we start off, we have Detective Isaac Cho on the Sysgov side, and then we have Special Agent Susan Cantrell on the admin side. And initially, they don't really hit it off all that well. They approach, they're both assigned, as partners as part of the officer exchange program. They're there's a murder, actually a double homicide within the Gordian Division that they're assigned to.
But only one of
And
them stays dead.
yes, yeah,
The
I mean,
complexities of this universe.
and they're both used to approaching these sorts of problems from different perspectives, with different methods.
You mean the difference between investigating them and shooting them?
Yep.
Yeah.
One of them, Susan, is used to blowing up her problems and
Well,
solving
she's
them
also
that way.
used to dealing with like terrorist scale issues too.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
you got to react hard whenever people are throwing like, yeah, the kind of stuff that gets thrown at you on an average day in the admin.
But I mean, it's certainly not the not like the main thrust of the plot, but certainly an element of the story is how they kind of come to grips with their differences and realize that, hey, we have strengths in different areas, and if we put these strengths together, we have a better chance of solving this mystery.
Exactly.
And coming back alive, which becomes relevant.
Yeah.
That is half the equation to me. The other half of the equation is the extent to which they understand not just the problem solving aspects of their interlocking strengths and weaknesses, but the way in which they find the resonances in one another for a deep personal friendship as well. I mean, it's neither one of them is gushing over this or anything, but I think anyone reading this book is going to realize by the end of it that no matter where they started out, okay, these two and Sephi, okay, have become very close. And that's part of what I was talking about in the ability to reach across these divides. And anyway.
All right. Okay, so we actually have a ton of people in the comments just saying hey and hooray for the Janus file. Hey, I just want to say hey to everybody. So hey, Joelle and John and Jack and James and Scott. There's a lot of names I don't recognize here. We have lots of new people. Sweet. And then and Nathan says enter the contest. By the way, yeah, guys, go enter the contest. It's amazing. And oh, hey, Derek, I know you. The weirdest stuff says nice bow tie to Jacob. And then Richard asks new main characters or returning ones, which is, I guess, not a complicated question, but who wants to take that one?
We did have to, introduce new cast members, since we're bringing in, the detective portion of the the police organization into the fore. So Isaac Cho is a new character for this book. Susan Cantrell is.
Yeah, how are you gonna describe that one, Jacob?
She is a returning character
in so many senses of the word.
She has she's actually in the Gordian Protocol in I believe two scenes. It's sort of blink and you'll miss it. And she gets blown out into space and dies. But hey, time travel, timey-wimey, and she gets to come back.
No one stays dead permanently. Yeah. Or, well, some people stay dead permanently. But
Sharon always loves supernatural,
And I can't remember, is it this book where some of the cast from the other two Gordian books do make an apphirance at some point? So you see some of your favorites too.
Yeah, Rybert is in it. Philo is in it.
Yeah, I think there will probably going forward be more carryover from the Gordian thread into the Janus thread. The protocol thread into the files thread than the other way around. But I would be very surprised if there's not a lot of cross series characterization. Essentially, the protocol books are going to be those which wind up essentially with okay, we have to make a new rule to keep us all from killing ourselves with time travel.
Mhm.
So we're going to have another protocol. Jacob killed another universe. We have to put a protocol in there to stop him from doing it.
The Jacob has been unleashed.
Yes. And the file novels are going to be a lot more like this one here, but I also visualize them as being not just police procedurals, but also the ones in which we actually see the societies
Mhm.
coming to grips with one another in non-cataclysmic circumstances.
Yeah. And that's actually one of my favorite things about this book in particular, and actually leads me into my next question. It does get to go a bit deeper into the more mundane elements of these societies. And so I want to ask, I got to read my writing, which is a task sometimes. What part of those societies did you guys have the most fun developing in terms of the quirky things? Jacob sounds like he has an answer with that laugh.
Actually, I want to hear what David's going to say first, but then I'm going to, because I think David knows which aspect I'm going to talk about.
All right. Well, let me just say that for this entire series, okay, I had a concept of what was going to become Paul and what was going to become the admin. Okay. And I had a really good notion of what I wanted to do in Gordian, the issues that I wanted to look at and the way I wanted to go together. Now, I am a historian. I am not an engineer. Okay. And so I told Jacob what we needed the technology to do and said, now go away and build technology that will do it. And he did.
And you did.
Yes. And really and truly, almost all of the actual technology available to these two societies was built by Jacob. Okay. And an awful lot of my rough notions about how I wanted the societies to be set up are informed by and shaped by the technology. So he's all over the DNA of the social organizations that go with the tech sets that we came up with.
Mhm.
Or that he came up with, really. And it's been one of the more gratifying collaborations of my experience in that respect. First, because Jacob is an excellent writer, okay, but also because our strengths are so radically different that, like Susan and we're Susan and Isaac, we're kind of like, okay, this is what it's very clearly differentiated what we bring to each individual book. Okay. And I'm not saying that that's in the sense of, okay, I know what I need to do, and so I'm comfortable about it. But what I'm saying is that our strengths play off of each other so well that the final product, I think, is much stronger than either of us could have produced alone. I know that I could not have
Mhm.
produced the technology that is, I mean, parts of it, yes. Okay, but nowhere near all of it. And I certainly couldn't have realized the underlying hardware and many of the implications the way that Jacob has.
Sometimes it's
How about
beneficial
you,
writing
Jacob?
with an engineer.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It's a
need to,
perk.
for readers who are not accustomed to us, I need to give you some additional context on how much Jacob actually enjoys this stuff. So there was a period where Jacob literally read Stephen Hawking before bed and understood enough of it to actually have an opinion on Stephen Hawking. And the thing is,
It's
most
not,
nights, go Jacob,
it's
say.
not just even, I mean,
Well, there's Michio
go
Kaku,
ahead.
too.
Go ahead.
And what other physics writers do you like? Anyway, my point is, we will be cuddling up at night and getting all romantic, and Jacob will be sweet and nuzzle up to my ear and whisper the latest physics fact he has learned. And there was a period, like
This
there
is
was
true.
literally
Guilty
Yeah.
as charged.
there was literally one day where I told, like, it was like midnight and we were going to bed late, and I told Jacob that I read this new article about this new theory about black holes, and he had to get out of bed at midnight to go
Yeah, I
find this
did.
article, and I'm just like, forget it, I'm going to sleep.
It was worth
But
it
yeah,
too.
so
Yeah.
and so
What
just
were you
know-
thinking?
just know, oh, and then there was a period too where I got my revenge by reading Salt: A World History, which is actually a really, really interesting book. And I would sneak up on him and just give random salt facts at inopportune moments, to the point where I got banned from talking about salt. And so it's wild times at House Holo. But anyway, just to say that pretty much every bit of the technology you see and scientific theory you see in this series, right down to the actual system of time travel, is based as closely on actual physics as
Well-
Jacob can possibly make it. Like there's one little bit of lamp shading you had to do.
Well,
but-
I mean, the time travel mechanics, they're really, it is a made up system, but I think it's a well developed system in terms
It
of
is.
how it
And-
mechanically works.
And it is an extremely internally consistent and coherent system, which is
And that's an
really
important thing.
for storytelling. Yes.
Well, especially because for time travel, because and I know you've told this story before, Jacob, but I know you say that there was a period where you said you were never ever going to write a time travel story, and a lot of it came down to the fact that a lot of time travel stories really struggle with the consistency of their own world. And yeah, so like time travel is hugely challenging to write and write well. Jacob, did you have something to add? I feel you through the internet.
No. I mean that I still have, like, in the back of my head, the answer to the previous question that we were working on, and we've kind of
Say
moved.
it then. Go for it.
Well,
You have permission as the host. I give you permission.
So I don't remember exactly what your question was at this point, but I know we were
I don't
talking
either,
about,
to be honest.
digging into the details of the two societies, Syscov and Admin, and the aspect that I had the most fun with. All right, so this actually came about sort of by accident. So back in the Gordian Protocol, in the first draft, there was some gaming aspects to the admin culture, and that essentially virtual reality games, whatnots, were like a big sporting event for them, and some of the characters were gamers and whatnot. And one of the issues that came up, that actually Tony brought up during the content edit, was that when Rybert gets his new body, it's physically much larger than his original body. And she was like, well, how's he adapting to it so quickly? And so I'm like, oh, I can fix this. I can fix this. And so, I basically introduced the fact that he and Philo were gamers, and this is like full sensory immersion, and that they were playing basically a sci-fi version of D&D, and Rybert, through that experience, was used to going around these big grenadier lizardmen sci-fi characters of his, blowing stuff up. And so at that point, we had the two societies. They had all these things that they did not have in common, but they both love gaming. And it comes up once or twice.
You think?
Then David just starts snorting out laughter there.
Is it book 4 or 5 that's actually set like at an entire gaming tournament? Like one of the upcoming books.
That's four.
Yeah.
That's the
If you're a gamer, the next one is going to be right up your alley.
Yeah.
We have a question from Richard. Did you finish your answer, Jacob?
That's it. Yep.
Okay. All right. Was there a part of the story that you argued over or discussed that ended up not making it into the book?
Except for Tony throwing out our entire original proposal, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got those kinks, worked out in the outlining phase. And I think that's, as someone who has something of a background in project management, I appreciate, that's kind of our workflow, is that we put these proposals together, we bounce them back and forth between the two of us, we present them to Tony, we get the feedback, we may iterate depending on what the feedback is, and then once we get the thumbs up from the customer, then it's like, all right, we're off to the races.
Yeah. Well, and Jacob is very organized when he's working on one of these. And no, Jacob, that's a good thing. Okay.
I laugh because the reason
organized story writing, organized crime, organized. I'm sorry.
Jacob is organized in all ways. The main reason we're streaming from 2 different rooms is because he's not allowed in my office because it's messy enough that it stresses him out.
Well, that explains why you're so uncomfortable when you come to my office for these brainstorming things, Jacob. I never realized.
Heather's room is worse.
Oh yeah, my room's a fire hazard. Like, if someone tries to break into our house through my room, we're gonna find a dead body in the morning. Like, it is. I fully admit that it is atrocious.
I have to shove boxes out of the way just to get to you and give you a hug at your desk.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long hair. I mean, you just
got
to move boxes, man.
Oh, the weirdest stuff. Just asked if we live close to each other. Yeah, we totally do. Like, David's 20 minutes from us. It's awesome.
Yep. Well, okay. The object of a collaboration is to write a story that is different, but at least as strong as either or any in a multi-collaborator novel or story of the collaborators would have done solo. Okay. And it is also, I think, in many cases, to tell a story that the collaborators might not have been able to tell individually, not just different from what they would have told, but that they would not have been able to tell without the assistance of the other writing partner. Okay. I think that in a whole lot of ways, these novels are a perfect example of that. Okay. I mean, I could have written the original concept for the Gordian Protocol on my own, but I wasn't comfortable with how I would have set up the isotope of polonium to make the time travel work. Okay. And
I was your polonium engineer.
Yes, you were. But the thing about a workable isotope of polonium, okay, is that it has to make sense.
Oh, you slipped out for a second.
Am I still here?
I can.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, you're. Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Okay. The polonium has to work. Okay. And I was not really comfortable with my ability to make that work for the time travel aspect of this story. For a one-time shot like I did in the Apocalypse Troll, where I'm sending a character back and they're never going to come back to the future again, that's one thing. But what we were going to be looking at here is a back and forth. And, how do you resolve interference in the time stream, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just really wasn't comfortable doing it on my own. Well, Sharon and I had gotten to know you and Jacob, and I'd read a couple of Jacob's solo novels. And it occurred to me that he might be the person that I needed to help get this story up and told. And I think actually that was one of my better notions. Um, he did kill the goldfish, but you know, I have forgiven him for that. You know, but that's actually
so. I basically like have like the same response every time that like I destroy something that you were intending to like keep in the series. It's like, but David, it solves so many problems.
right. You and Susan. I mean, well, but okay. One of the things that happens in a collaboration frequently is somebody does something that somebody else wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of going, no, 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 you can't do that, you go, oh, wait, I can work with this. And you go in a different direction.
My favorite example of this is from the first book where Jacob killed a character you had intended to leave alive.
That's the
then you
goldfish.
went back.
Group of characters.
Oh yeah. And then
All
you went
three
back
of them.
and made it even sadder. It was so great.
Yeah, because we were talking about the first draft, and you were like, I like this, I like this, I like this. That I wasn't you had mentioned that you intended that those characters to live and to be for there to be stories about them for the run. It's like, oh yeah, I have no problem. Go ahead, change that, David. And then your edits come back to me, and I'm like going through them, and it's like, wait a second. They're still dead. Oh man, this is so much better. Cranked up to 11. This is great.
It's one of those scenes you have to bring an extra box of tissues for because it's just that much sadder.
Well, but it also one of the consequences of it was there was a very definite moral theme for me in the Gordian Protocol, and that was taking responsibility. I mean, Benjamin basically has to take responsibility for guaranteeing that the Holocaust happens, when in his new changed timeline, it doesn't. Because if the Holocaust doesn't happen, 15 universes die because of how the change in the time stream is impacting upon them. And his grandfather, Klaus Wilhelm, has to make the decision that if he involves himself in this, in my original, to quote Mentor of Aricia, my original visualization of the cosmic all, he has to decide to do this even knowing that it may mean that his second wife and their children never exist. Okay. And he makes the hard call to do it. And then at the end of the book, we find out that it's been possible to rescue his family. And so when Jacob killed the family in question off, my original reaction was, oh man, that really screws up my visualization of Klaus Wilhelm. Because number one, it took away part of the weight of his responsibility, because now he doesn't have to worry about killing them or causing them not to exist because they're already dead in his timeline, if you see what I'm saying. That was the downside of what Jacob had done. Okay. The upside of it was what it brought to Klaus Wilhelm as a human being, and what it meant for him going forward in the position that he was going to hold in the subsequent books, because we knew from the very beginning that he was going to wind up the commanding officer of what became the Gordian Protocol. Okay.
The Gordian Division.
Well, Gordian Division. I'm sorry, Gordian Protocol, Gordian Division, Gordian. It was a knotty problem we had to solve, but the relationship that this creates between him and especially between him and Shigeki was much from a storytelling perspective, from the perspective of building these characters. It was much more effective than it would have been if he hadn't lost his wife and his children. And it also, the way that I tweaked what Jacob had done. I think it also, his wife was an extraordinary woman in every sense of the word, from the way she lived to the way that she died. Okay. And that, in a sense, makes Klaus even more extraordinary because this was the woman who loved him. Do you see what I'm saying? So, well, my original reaction was, no, we can't do that. And my subsequent reaction was, oh, hell yes, we can do that.
We have another question from the weirdest stuff. Says, do you find yourself talking to your characters?
I admit to nothing.
I dictate the books, so yeah, I talk to them a lot.
Quite literally, yeah.
Yeah.
That actually leads me into a question for you specifically, Jacob. Like, as your wife, I've heard you a million times say, "This is the best book I've ever written. I love writing about Isaac and Susan. And I want to write about them forever." What makes them such fun characters to write for you?
I think, part of the appeal of these two characters for me is that, they're not like, and this was, a deliberate thing that David and I were going into. They're not the elites of their respective societies. They're a few tiers down. They're
working stiffs.
Yeah. I mean, they're, like Isaac as a detective, what's his strength? That he's tenacious and hardworking. He's not like a super genius or anything,
Just
but
a regular guy.
But
he's
he's
a regular guy, yeah.
I think he's a step up from a regular guy, but what moves him up from being a regular guy isn't his brilliance. It's his determination, and it is his thoroughness.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, a lot of times, just given the nature of, storytelling and, the kinds of stories that I've, written, you're dealing with very high tier, highly capable characters.
That's because you like to kill universes.
And this is another aspect of the setting, and it lets us, kind of. It also gives us excuses to go into kind of like the seedier corners of the society.
The meal spigot.
I love the meal spigot. It's my favorite.
Yeah, they take a stop at basically the equivalent of McDonald's in post scarcity society.
But it's like 3D printed food. I love it. I love the little touches like that. Where for the characters in this setting, it's completely mundane, but for us in the present we live in, it's really exotic, and so it's really cool to come in as a reader with that sort of contrast and experience it.
Well, the other thing about the meal spigot scene, and it's mostly done.
Well, it's a recurring setting.
Yeah.
Well, you have the partially it's utilized by the characters to kind of review the information that they have and decide how they're going to move forward. But it's also an opportunity to have a little bit of fun and have some humor. And to so in the Janus file, there is, of course, the investigative A plot, which is the murder, the double homicide. But there is a B plot investigation going on as well, and that deals with a hacker who people are calling the Apple Cipher.
I love
who has been hacking food printers, and so when their food comes out, like they order pizza, and so there's like bits of apple that are replacing various ingredients, and the staff, they're apologizing, and actually
It's not just regular apple though. Like if it ever prints a whole apple, it's got like crazy designs on it and stuff. Like it's a scary apple.
Yeah, it's got like little glyphs that are done with food coloring, and people are trying to trying to decipher what this message is so they can track this person down, and all the the government officials are like, this is the case everyone needs to be working on. It's like, forget those 2 people that were killed. Everyone needs to be hunting for the apple cipher.
Because he's the one we're catching flack over.
Yes,
is
exactly.
one of the aspects of the book that I love. I think that the meal spigot, one of the reasons that I mentioned it, and I think this goes to what you were talking about the mundane details, Heather. This is a very thoroughly realized future society.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's not as, believe it or not, it is not as fully realized yet as it looks when you're reading one of these books. And that is because what has been realized holds together so well. There are whole aspects of the technology and the background of these societies that we haven't even looked at yet, that we will eventually be getting into. But what we have already established works so well, and this is largely thanks to Jacob. The technology is so seamless that you feel like you've seen even more than you have. All right, it's got that consistency, that continuity to it, that you can understand that you have looked in through a window into a room in a fully decorated house, even though you haven't seen the other rooms yet. Okay, fully furnished, not decorated.
Yeah.
Decorated is so tacky compared to furnished.
All right, well, we have actually gotten to the end of my questions. So, viewers, we've got a nice handful of you. If you have any questions for the authors, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And while we wait on additional questions, I want to say, what's planned for the future of this series? I mean, obviously, I know what's in the future of this series, but for readers, what would you like them to know about what they have to look forward to in the next several books?
I am going to allow Jacob to blow up another universe. Actually, several universes. Actually, most of them, kind of thing. Had to kind of pull them back.
Oh, yeah.
From doing this originally,
Jacob must be restrained a lot.
Well, I mean, part of that was, my
exuberance.
Well, not fully comprehending, in detail the trajectory that you envisioned for the series. And so I'm like, oh, well, we need to go bigger. And we did with Valkyrie. And then we need to go bigger still. And you're like, Jacob, we will eventually run out of apocalypses.
We'll run out of bigger.
I'm like, oh, yeah. You have a point there, David.
Well, heck, I experienced it in many ways in the Honorverse because of the fact that the Solarian League didn't have the time it needed to catch up technologically for a bunch of reasons, some of them beyond my control. And so I found myself in a situation where it was really difficult to write a battle scene, which was a battle and not a curb stomp. Okay. And when you get to the point where you can't keep making it bigger. Okay. You can't keep making the explosions bigger. Now, what you can do is you can do something else between the explosions. Okay. Which is what the file storyline is. It's also, like I say, it's part of what I had visualized from the beginning, except that in my original karma, and Jacob and I have talked a little bit about this since we finished the Weltall. In my original karma, I had visualized more human universes with people traveling between them, with different societies which had evolved from different historical circumstances. What we have established at this point is that both admin and sysgov are low probability universes in the sense that they survived the discovery of time travel technology. And Valkyrie gave us a chance to explain why that was. Because Valkyrie, the universe was killed because of a totally logical application of the technology that just happened to destroy the entire universe. It's one of those little unfortunate things that happens, but there would be other universes in which time travel was never discovered, okay, or in which it hasn't been discovered yet, that would be there and be available for contact by our two baseline societies. And I'm hoping that we'll look at some of those in future books. Those would be the ones where, for example, my historical background would come into play in structuring the timeline that led to the society we want to have them interacting with right now. And it would also give our two main homeline societies. Are they going to intervene because they see a society going in a bad way? Okay. Are they going to simply ignore it? Are they only going to get involved if these guys are doing something that could be a threat to them? Like, I don't know, fooling around with time travel and weakening the interuniversal wall? Who knows?
There's a lot of potential in this universe, and that's one of my favorite things about it. Like, it is so wildly complex that the stories that are possible are just crazy and infinite, and I love it.
Well, actually, beneath the complexity, it's really very simple. Okay, the complexity lies in the variations on the theme that are possible. All right. Would you say that was fair, Jacob?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I would agree. And also, just getting back to Heather, what you brought up, what is in store for the series. So of course, the Janus file just released, and the next book, the Weltall file, which is another book starring Isaac and Susan, is, I believe, slated for a June release next year.
Which actually brings up an audience question. The Weirdest Stuff asks, do we have a cover already? I know we have art.
We have cover art. We don't have a cover yet.
Yeah, and it's and again, it's another Dave Seeley cover, right? Is Dave Seeley is the
no,
one?
it's Kurt Miller.
No, it's Kurt Miller. Okay, yeah, Dave Seeley did the other ones. All right, they're both awesome. So
yes,
get awesome artists.
Yes, they are both. They've both produced wonderful covers for the series.
There's also this novel about Dyson something.
The Dyson file.
Yes. So there's also the Dyson file, which I turned in recently, is another file book. It's my first solo novel for Baen Books.
And very good.
Good Jacob.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So and yeah, you can tell that I enjoy. I found a love for writing. Detective stories, because as soon as I wrote one, I immediately wrote two more.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to collaborate with Jacob in the first place. Okay, because from what I was seeing of the work that he'd already done, okay, this solo writing he should have been doing. Okay. Well, I'm talking about doing it for traditional publishing. Okay. And so one of the things that I hoped would emerge from this is exactly what happened. Tony basically said to him, "Hey, how would you like to write me some solo books?" Okay. And I was like, yes, 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 Jacob,
Yay!
write the solo books, Jacob. Go, go, go. You
Yes.
know.
And then you've got another solo one that I think you still have to go over the final draft of it and turn it in, but it's basically like harder sci-fi Firefly, basically, which is one of my
Well,
favorites.
so I basically when I was talking to Tony about solo projects, I said, hey, would you like to see, a solo proposal set in the Gordian Division series? Or would you like to see something original? And her response was, let's embrace the power of and. I'm like, okay. So I presented her with 2 proposals, one of which became the Dyson file.
And then she bought both of them, right?
Yes, she bought both of them. She bought both.
Tony,
I'm like,
Tony
oh,
is a
cool.
smart lady, I just,
We were not expecting both to be purchased. We were expecting just one, and then
so
they
the other
just
one
ordered.
is called Shattered Soul, spelled SOL, so the sun. And it is the shorthand for it is Firefly meets Ring World. It is hard science fiction. It's for our future. It's a scrappy crew on a scrappy ship having adventures in a solar system that looks very different from the way it looks today.
But yeah, I love this thing. It's, if you are one of the many people who lament that Firefly never got a second season, I think it's absolutely going to scratch that itch. It's different, but
I think of the stuff that I've written, I think it's your favorite.
Oh yeah, it's hands down my favorite. I mean, I love Gordian Division, but
and then also
scratches all the good itches.
Getting back to the Gordian Division series, we have I've just wrote the first scene of it today. Is the Thermopylae Protocol, which will be book 6 in the series, and it will actually combine the 2 casts, the 2 main casts, quite a bit more. There's crossover in Janus, and it's also crossover in Veltal, but it will be much more significant in Thermopylae.
I would say that most of the crossover that we actually get to see developed societies in, we're on the Cispal side.
Mm-hmm.
The visits to admin, like the visit to Luna, where we find out about the terrorist incident that caused Susan to enter police work, etc. Really, I don't feel like it gives us as good a grasp on admin's internal structure as it does on Cispals. I think this one that's going to be flipped a little bit because so much is going to be going on in admin. So it's going to be a better window into the other side of this fusion of societies fusion's probably not the right word because I don't see them ever becoming identical, but I do see them evolving a common template.
A little bit of cross-pollination, I think.
Oh yes, there'll be a lot of cross-pollination.
Yeah, based upon what you told me of the outline, definitely this one is a lot more complex in terms of the universes overlapping and the casts overlapping.
Yeah. Jacob, should we tell them about that other project?
Sure.
Are you allowed to?
I mean,
yeah,
David is allowed to. I just follow his lead on this one.
All right.
Because I don't have a contract yet.
There's a secret project.
We have discussed with Tony, and Tony has approved an Honor Harrington trilogy with me and Jacob as the collaborating authors. And it will be basically the story of Edward Saganami.
That's gonna be so good.
Yeah, so it's going to be another prequel. The Honorverse is big enough, okay, that there are a whole bunch of corners that haven't been painted in yet that really need to be. And at the moment, I am really inclined to let Honor enjoy her retirement she's earned it. Okay, I mean, I'm going to have to go back eventually and do the sequel to End in Fire that Eric and I had planned, but obviously I'm not going to be able to do it with Eric, and that's kind of bittersweet. So I am looking more at the prequel side of things. Tim Zahn, Tom Pope, and I should be wrapping up the Travis Lee storyline, and I think the book that Tim is working on now, and one more. So that will put that to bed. Jane and I still have at least two more to do in the Star Kingdom, the Stephanie books. And then this is another part of the background of the back history of the universe that I needed to for my own satisfaction, this story needs to be told. And I think that it is the ideal vehicle to get Jacob inserted into the Honorverse. I can't send Honor on another hell ride.
You gotta let her rest.
Well, no, the problem is it's like blowing up universes. Okay, I mean,
Well,
you get to the point where, okay, I'm going to send her on a death ride. Well, she has to take an entire 5,000 ship fleet with her on the death ride. How death ride can it be?
I'm immediately reminded of this one line that she has in To End in Fire, where she's communicating with the bad guys in that book, and there's a little bit of back and forth, and it's like, okay, well, while you're doing that, what do you think that we're going to be doing? And Honor says, dying.
She was
and she has totally earned it by that point of the series, just to say that, yep, you're just going to die while I do what I want to do over here in the other part of the system.
Yeah, she was not in a happy place at that moment. But yeah, it's the beauty and the biggest problem of a series like the Honor Harrington novels is that you get to spend so much time developing a character that you love, spending time with her universe and everything else. The problem is that unless you're going to take a Star Trek, the original series approach to it and make, it's just episodic and the episodes don't necessarily relate to a larger storyline. They're just things that happen. You reach a point where, okay, what do you do for an encore? Okay, now in Jacob's case, I know what you do for an encore. You blow up the universe. Okay. But I just, what can I say? I've blown up a few universes in my time. I'm just saying, but I've found myself more and more in the Honorverse, really. And I think this is one thing that I like about the Janus File, too. I find myself in the Honorverse doing more of the relationship developing stories rather than the I'm fighting the war stories. Okay. One thing that a lot of people missed about the original Honor Harrington books is that they weren't just about Honor Harrington. They were about an interstellar war with Honor as the primary viewpoint character into that war. Not just what it was costing her, but what it was costing the other societies involved, the impact it was having, etc. And I was able to do a whole lot of this is about Honor in the course of it. But that was the concept for the novel. And what I'm doing more now in the short fiction I'm doing for the Honorverse and whatnot, and what probably would be the case here in the Saganami books, is I'm being able to kind of step back from that grand scale canvas and get closer to the Honor Harrington of, say, Honor of the Queen or the Short Victorious War. Okay? And I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. All right, we actually have a small handful of questions from commenters now. This one is just a comment. It says, just a general comment on sci-fi and fantasy books in general. As a semi-truck driver, I would like to see more books of this genre in audiobook form. Am I right in thinking, in saying that Baen is actually trying to adapt its entire collection or most of it into audio? Like, did I hear that correctly at some point?
I believe they actually have a contract
With
to pretty much
Audible?
do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I don't know is who controls the order in which the books
Mm-hmm.
are moved to Audible, because part of it is a matter of when the voice talent
Right.
is going to be available. But I do know that Tony has told us that all of this series is supposed to eventually be available
Nice.
as audio. Now I have to confess that I don't really do the Audible books myself, because I can read so much faster than I can listen. And I'm, if I were a semi driver, I would be so into audiobooks.
A huge number of our readers are
Absolutely.
semi-drivers. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, you guys can tear through audiobooks. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, they have uninterrupted time. I mean,
I have totally told myself that if this author thing doesn't work out, I'm totally going to drive a semi just so I can listen to audiobooks all the time. Like, I'm going to knock out so many books that way. But then I would miss Jacob because I wouldn't be home a lot. So maybe that is not the career for me. But
well, somebody has said something here about wanting anime adaptations.
yes, please.
I think the Gordian universe would make a really cool
heck
anime
yeah.
adaptation.
I could recommend studios.
Well, right this minute, we actually have a proposal out, a pretty detailed proposal out, for an anime version of the Mutineers Moon books.
Ooh.
Yeah, I should show you two the deck.
Yes, please.
Yes, I can do that. I can't show it to anybody else, but I can show it to you two. See, now you got to snirk,
Oh yeah. Other new people, Jacob and I are enormous anime nerds. So yeah, all things anime just make me go.
So at this point, it's all in the yes, people are expressing an interest stage, which in Hollywood, that and $5 will buy you a gallon of gas. I mean,
Yeah.
But I really like the proposal that they've put together. I think that it looks very good, and I have to say, given the scale of Mutineers Moon, it just is a perfect match for anime.
I'm actually reading the first book right now because I've discovered a ton of David Weber books I actually have not read that I need to catch up on. But yeah, I'm reading that one right now, and I got to like the first scene and I was like, yeah, this is an anime. This is definitely an anime. It's got all the right characters and tropes and it would make a spectacular anime.
Wait till you get to the mousetrap in the Armageddon Inheritance. I will just tell you that I set up the mousetrap on like the second page of the first book.
Ooh.
I just hung that rifle on the wall.
I gotta go
and then walked away and ignored it until you're most of the way through the second book.
All right, next question, and this isn't something that we as authors, I say we as if I'm actually part of this novel, I'm not, but that we don't actually have all that much input on in general. Have you ever considered using AI for cover art? Now, I know that's a complicated question right now.
That would be something that would be more okay. That's something that an indie would probably have more control over than a traditional author. Okay. Until you have been around for a while, your input into things like covers in traditional publishing is limited. And one of the reasons it's limited is that the publishers believe, accurately, I might add, that most authors are as little children where graphic arts are involved and should be kept far, far away with their crayons from what we're going to do. David Mattingly does the Honor Harrington covers now. Okay. And we've gone back and recovered all of the earlier books so that we have the same flavor all the way through. David is great about emailing me and saying, okay, is she in Grayson uniform this time or Manticoran uniform? What rank is she for this book? What are the rank insignia, et cetera, et cetera? The problem is that too often, if an artist, the more an artist tries to do exactly what the author is describing to him, the less of the artist's good work you're going to get. You didn't hand this to an artist instead of doing it yourself because you are the best qualified artist in the room. Okay. Now, see, I did advertising and public relations for many years before I sold the first novel. And so I was used to telling an artist, this is what I want the piece to do. Here are the 2 or 3 critical things that have to be in it. Now go do something. Okay. I think it's harder for most authors to do that if they're offered the opportunity to talk to the artist. Do you see what I'm saying? Because we have a very firm visualization in our heads of what this is supposed to look like. And the more we try to make the artist make it look like what we're thinking of, the less spontaneous it's going to be for him.
That's how we approach our indie covers, actually. Like, the one thing that a lot of people don't realize about cover design is a lot of people, readers and authors themselves, like, basically tend to think, oh, if the cover is pretty, it will sell. And that's not the case. One thing that it actually took me several years of publishing to learn is that each genre has its own visual language, sort of, that readers just instinctively look for. And it doesn't matter how good your book is, if the cover of that book does not fit the visual language that readers are accustomed to looking to, like the specific colors that are associated with certain genres and cover layouts and things like that, then it's not going to sell nearly as well. And so one of the things I actually do, I'm in charge of commissioning the artists and whatnot for our indie stuff. I actually will literally go and look at bestseller lists and basically try to make my cover look as much like the most common bestseller style covers, just so people have that sort of visual indicator that, oh, this is the genre I'm looking for.
Well, you can break the frame, but you need to do it in a way. How do I put this? One of the mistakes I think that authors make is the belief that to be effective, the cover should accurately portray a specific scene in the books. It is fantastic when you can do that and still have an effective cover. But the primary function of that cover is to get somebody who never heard of you to pick it up, look at it, and say, huh, okay. So it's a combination of the art and whatever the blurb, whatever the teaser copy is, okay? Way back when, I had a conversation with Tom Doherty of Tor Books. And he and Jim Bain and I were talking. It was a 3-way conversation. And we were talking about what sells books, okay? And essentially what they told me was 90% of the decisions to buy a book are based on the fact that you already read something else by that author.
You flickered out.
Am I back again? Okay.
Yeah, you're
90% back. 90% of decisions to buy a book are based on the fact that you've already read something by that author and you liked it. Of the 10% that aren't, okay, 90% are based on the fact that someone whose reading tastes you respect recommended that author to you. And of the 10% of those that aren't, 90% of those are based on cover and cover copy. Those are really what you're browsing the shelf, you're browsing Amazon online, and you say, whoa, and you take a look. Now, things have changed since I had that conversation, because that conversation was pre-internet. Okay, not just not just pre-Amazon. All right, but the marketing tools have changed, but a lot of the same um, uh, eye-attracting criteria are still in play. Okay.
All right, we've
We
got
have more questions.
We do. We have at least two more. One is a very quick one. What are the projected release dates for your solo stuff, Jacob? Do we have release dates yet, or are they still too far in the future?
Nope.
Not within the next 6 months. So, so somewhere far out. But yeah, we don't know. Sometime, hopefully within the next
the
2 3
Dyson
years.
is complete and handed in, right?
Yeah.
Jacob?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then I would anticipate that one probably sometime late next year.
Yeah.
Probably third or fourth quarter of next year.
I feel
I'm just
like the Gordian
guessing there,
books
but
they've tended to fall in October. Like, I don't know that it was necessarily planned that way, but I feel like all the Gordian releases have been October releases.
Yeah.
So
no, only 2 of them.
Really? Oh, really? Okay. I'm just remembering wrong then. Let's see here. Question for the authors. Any particular scene that stands out as, oh my gosh, that was fun to write? Are you thinking about the giant robot scene, Jacob?
Well, I like big stompy robots. I don't think anyone who knows me or is, acquainted with my material would doubt this. And I remember, when Dave and I, we were working on planning Valkyrie. Yeah, I had talked about, I can put in a big stompy robot here. It won't be huge. It'll just be a smaller one, like 3 stories tall. And David wasn't really feeling it.
Not so much.
So like, all right. But then at some point in an interview, you'd mentioned, we need to find a way to fit a big stompy robot into the series because Jacob loves big stompy robots. And I'm like,
yes.
I
wouldn't let him do one there, so I had to let him do it somewhere.
I have received permission. So,
so there is
a big stompy robot that shows up
for totally logical reasons. Yes.
I think it's I don't know if I'd say it's my favorite scene, but it's way up there.
Oh yeah, it's a fun scene. Our next question is, have you guys considered doing a paid event on Facebook, basically a virtual book conference? I'll answer for Jacob because I handle all our marketing stuff. No, we tend to do everything free. But yeah, we're easy to talk to. So find us at cons or watch our things. And
I am actually currently.
You're doing a master class, aren't you?
Yes, sort of.
Yeah.
It will be a. As a matter of fact, we're going back up to North Carolina next week to work on the video for the character building workshop. It's looking like it will probably be a series of 30-minute videos on various aspects of the craft. And hopefully what will happen is they will be followed by a moderated live Q&A for people who have been involved in the initial video release. So I have no idea how all this is going to work out because I've never tried it before. But one of the reasons that I do as many collaborations as I do, and one of the reasons that I have done them with authors who I think have a lot of promise, but are still in the, I don't want to say the larval stage of their careers, but still in the early stages of their career. is
Like, I
that
still feel like a larva. What are you talking about,
oh
David?
no, Jacob. No, Jacob, that
You're at
chrysalis
the
is
very
open,
least in
you
the
know.
chrysalis stage.
Yeah. Um, the thing is that storytelling writing is something that you learn by doing. Okay. It's I've said this before, it's very much like a physical skill. And it's like learning to walk. And you fall down a lot. And each time you fall down and get back up, you learn a little bit more about getting back up and staying on your feet. Okay, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. I sold the first book in 89. Okay, in the course of that, I've acquired a skill set. All right. Well, in the course of that, I've also turned 70 this month. And that means that it's a perishable asset. All right. And so, one of the things that I want to do is with someone like Jacob is to share with him what I've learned. And hopefully, he can take that with the very large natural ability that he has and shortcut some of the stuff that it took me 20, 30 years to learn. Okay. Um, and that's a huge part of why I do collaborations in the first place. And it's also one of the big reasons that I want to do this master class is I've got a lot of stuff I've learned and I don't want it to just disappear with me when the time finally comes. But now, by the way, nobody should assume that I'm planning on shuffling off tomorrow. My grandmother
Thank
lived to
you.
be 101 and a half.
Good Lord.
Yes, and I don't want to live that long. Okay, no. But on the other hand, I'm not planning on leaving tomorrow. All right. Um, and I'm planning. I'm kind of like. How many of you have read uh, the Plague Dogs? It's by the same author as Watership
Watership
Down.
Down. I
Yeah.
have not read it.
Okay.
I know that the animated movie is traumatizing, so I haven't watched it either.
Of Watership Down or the Plague
well,
Dogs?
well, Watership Down and the Plague Dogs. Like
Well,
somehow they got an animated adaptation too.
the
I
Plague
haven't
Dogs.
even tried it.
The Plague Dogs, I think, is actually the better of the two books in a lot of ways. They're both good. They're both excellent. But the Plague Dogs is essentially about two dogs who've escaped from an animal experimentation center.
Mm.
And one of them, the big bruiser one of them, okay, is his thing is that he's going to keep running until the dark comes down. Okay, he'll never give up. He'll keep running he'll keep fighting until the dark comes down. And that's kind of where I am on writing. Okay. I mean, I'll just keep going. I remember when Roger Zelazny died. I flew out to New Mexico for a memorial service, and George Martin and I were driving out to uh, uh, the house where the second half of the memorial was going on. And George said, "I can't believe he's gone." And I said, "Well, and he said, I said it's not like the world didn't see what he could do before we lost him. 5 Hugos, 5 Nebulas. I think he was one of the greatest stylists writing in the English language, kind of thing." And George said, "Yeah, but he wasn't done yet."
Hmm.
And I said, "George, if Roger had been 90, he wouldn't have been done yet." Okay. And I think that that's where the really compulsive storytellers are.
Oh yeah.
Okay. This is what we do so much that we just can't visualize stopping doing it. And if we're Jack Williamson, we don't. Okay. We just keep doing it until we're 912. Um, am I am I back again?
Heather, I think it's on your side.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
Oh, is
I
it?
don't
Oh, okay, maybe
yeah.
it is just on my side
I
then.
don't see me going away.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but what I was going to say is there's a fine line between continuing to produce and realizing that you're no longer producing quality work.
Hmm.
And recognizing that spot, I think, will be extraordinarily hard for me. I've seen other writers who clearly did not realize that had happened to them, and that's another reason to work with good collaborators who are younger than I am, like most of the people on the planet. In that, if I have unfinished storylines that I've been working on with collaborators, then the collaborators will be in a position, if this is what they want to do, to complete the story arc. And this may sound strange, but I think you owe that to the characters.
Oh, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
We love our characters. Yeah.
Well, not all of them. Pablo Young, okay, you know.
Yeah.
Tied off his storyline. I was good with that, you know.
All right, we have a few short little ones. Jared is asking, are you guys going to be at SC Comic Con Junior tomorrow? We are not. It's a local SC or a local.
I'm afraid I'm not either.
Yeah, Jacob and I are going to be at the big one next year, but not the little one tomorrow. We also have, let's see, Eben is asking,
working on Gordian 6 tomorrow.
Yeah. Are there
Yeah.
Are there any more books in the Lit RPG series? I assume you're referring to Monster Punk Horizon. If not, just comment and I can elaborate there. But I do have more planned in Monster Punk Horizon. I just haven't actually written them yet. But yeah, so it's coming. It's just no release dates as of yet. And then we have, let me double check and make sure we only have one more left. Okay, last question for the moment. Besides the books all of you guys have written, do you each have another favorite author or series?
Okay, that's kind of like when they ask you which is your favorite book that you've written. It's like, who's your favorite child? Okay, and I don't know who's pissed me off today. I mean, you know.
Oh, sorry, Eben. I mispronounced someone's name. So
I do not have anywhere near the amount of time to read that I used to have. I'm sure Jacob and you have had the same experience.
Yes, absolutely.
You could use the same amount of energy writing 50,000 words.
So
or
reading
5,000. Okay. And so there are people whose books I was following who I loved that I have not been able to follow the way that I wish that I could. I love the Liaden books, the Liaden universe.
Oh yes.
Just, you know, and it's like I try to keep up with that. I really don't have that many science fiction series that I follow, and I don't know if that's because it's a little bit of a busman's holiday when I'm reading science fiction. A good science fiction story that will pull me in anyway, but I actually spend more time reading historical fiction or military history than I do science fiction. I mean, it's just like that's where my brain has to go to refresh.
For me, it's got to be Terry Pratchett.
I love me some Terry Pratchett. You took mine again.
But I'm sort of, along the same line with David, in that I enjoy reading science books. I like reading about string theory for fun.
Okay.
It does. It's infuriating.
All right. See this? I don't know if you can. Oh, it's a green cover. That's why you can't see it. Wait a minute. There we go.
I see U.S. battleships.
Yep. It's a design history of U.S. battleships. It has every battleship ever designed for the U.S. Navy with the entire history of the evolution of its design. Okay. Yeah. I like reading that stuff.
Yeah, I've got a question. I actually have a question for David.
Uh-oh.
Now, I've obviously, been hanging around you for quite a while now. I've heard you talk a lot of good things about Roger Zelazny. I have never read a Roger Zelazny book, and I would
Oh
like
my
to.
God.
If you had to recommend one to start with for someone who hasn't, which book of his would you recommend?
My favorite book that he ever wrote. And I did not realize that it's also the first novel that he ever wrote. The original title was Call Me Conrad. It was republished under This Immortal. Okay. No, not Amber. Pooey. No, okay. I love the Amber novels. Okay, but still. The thing about
Oh,
This
for those
Immortal.
not on Facebook, someone suggested 9 Princes in Amber.
Actually, what he
Or-
said
yeah.
was, "Good Lord,
Lord,
man,
man."
9 princes in Amber." Okay. And
We'll
I
add that
love
to the list too, though.
I love the Amber series. Do not get me wrong on this. But This Immortal was the very first Zelazny that I ever read. Okay. And I will tell you something that I realized a long time ago. You only discover a writer once.
Mm.
Okay. The book in which you discover a writer that you go, oh my God. Okay. That book is always special for you. And that's why you'll see reviews of a Roger Zelazny book that will say, not quite up to the standards of, but classic Zelazny.
Mm.
And the reason that you will see that is because the not quite up to the standards book is the first Zelazny that reviewer read.
Aha.
Okay. Think about that. Seriously. The moment that an author really clicks for you, that a storyteller really clicks for you, you only get that moment once. It's like those of us who are old enough, and yes, I am old enough to remember sitting in the theater when the ship comes overhead in Star Wars for the very first time.
Well, it's
Okay.
it's like me with your books, David. In Death Ground is my favorite because it was the first,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's the one you
it's
took
always
to get
gonna. I
signed
think it's
when you
always gonna
first
be
read
my
it.
favorite thing that
Yep.
you wrote,
And
and
so
it's where I discovered you.
yeah, so the only Zelazny book that I can recommend as the starting point. Okay. Now that was not, by the way, the first Zelazny that I ever read. Okay, I read Creatures of Light and Darkness before I read it, which is also very, very good. I'd read 2 or 3 Zelazny novels before I hit this one. But this one just clicked for me, and I honestly think that part of the reason that it did was that it was his first novel. Okay, my favorite Eric Flint novel has been and always will be Mother of Demons.
Oh yeah, I think
Okay.
you recommended that one to me before.
Yeah, it's an incredible book. Does it have problems? Yes, it has some problems. It's his first novel, all right, but it's really, really good. Um, have you ever read War for the Oaks?
Oh no.
Oh, what is her name? Um, Crap, I'm having a 70 moment. Um, but she did These Old Bones, War for the Oaks. Somebody out there will undoubtedly remember who I'm talking about here. They're fantastic.
I'm just
Okay.
gonna Google.
And I'm pretty sure that War for the Oaks,
Emma Bull.
Emma Bull, yes, yes. War for the Oaks was not her first published novel, but I'm pretty sure it was the first one she wrote. I'm just looking at it as a writer, looking at the development of the craft. War for the Oaks is fantastic. I highly recommend it.
Add that to my reading list too.
Yes, yes.
Well, one of the things, David, that you
Got a lot of good
mentioned
book
was
recommendations out of this. We are
was
also
that-
go for it.
well, okay. So one of the things, David, that you mentioned is that of the books you've written, it's hard to pick a favorite, and actually for me, it's not hard. It's the Janus File.
The most recent one. Okay. Yeah, that's usually
Yeah.
true.
But I mean, remember, we're a few books ahead.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I had more fun. I had the most fun writing this book of any book I've ever written.
Aw.
And
I think
I think that joy of, you know, the craft shines through in the book.
I think part of it is that this was, like you said, you know, police procedurals for you were like
Oh, it
a
just
new
clicked.
discovery.
Mhm.
And so you were not only having the joy of creation in the story that you were writing, but you were writing it in a whole new genre, a whole new locus for you. And yeah, I can definitely see that. I don't know what my favorite book that I ever wrote was. There have been so many that I really liked, and a few
You
that
got a
I'm
lot
like,
to pick from.
well, yeah, you know, it really, they really do tend to blur a little by the time you're 50, 60 down the road, you know. I've been working on, I'm expanding, I'm still kind of getting back on the horse after the COVID.
Mm.
My doctor keeps talking about long duration COVID, and I keep saying I'm ready for it to be over, you know, kind of thing. And one of the things that I'm working on is expanding the novella that I did for the last LibertyCon anthology
Oh, yeah.
to a full length, and it takes place in the same time frame as Field of Dishonor, which, if you know your Honorverse, that's only like book 4. Okay, so I have to keep kind of going back to look in earlier books to check things about, you know, when did this happen, when did that happen, etc. And I've discovered that I don't remember which book things happened in. Okay, and not only do I not remember which things books happened in, is that it's kind of like, wait, which order did I write them in? Okay, because there's
Oh,
so many of them. Okay, there's like 20 mainstream novels, and
yeah.
then all the ones
It's
floating
huge.
around the sides. Yeah, Bu 9 is great.
Oh, yeah. It's like you've got your
Heather,
own
you
war
were saying
masters.
that we were over, I think.
Yes. Well, usually I like to cut these off at about an hour, and that makes us about 41 minutes over. But you know, we've had a good time. But I
Yes.
am getting hungry.
You
I,
shouldn't have
too, am
invited
getting
me
hungry for
over.
dinner.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I think we should probably wrap it up so all of us can go
Yeah.
eat. But
That sounds
but yeah,
good.
thank you guys for joining us. Thank you all the commenters. We had a ton of commenters and viewers this time around. So once again, it's the Janus File. Please go buy it and review it and love it and buy the other books too. And
We'll have to do this for the next one again.
yes, absolutely. And so, do you guys have anything else you want to add, or shall I finish it up?
Take it away,
Yep.
Heather.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming, everyone, and we will see you for the next book.